Good day, Ross Jason Bowen Line. It's the 10th of 10th, 2016, 2:30 p.m. Today, cards. Let's talk about identification cards. We got driver's license, social insurance number, care cards, rec access, and what else? Oh, library cards, union cards, and so forth. Union card is a social insurance card. It just has your social insurance card, tells you your identification, and tells you belong to the thing because they use the same number. Well, I'd like to see all cards combined into one. That way it has one swipe card, one access to a computer thing that computers are running the world nowadays that we can access. We can see our driver's record, our offenses on the driver's things. If we ever committed a crime such as speeding, how much we paid, when we paid our bills, and so forth. Any false statements in there as well that people say they saw us driving on any police record as well, or any such thing as aggravated assault or suspicious of this or that, so we can protect ourselves equally and fairly before and after the law to seek legal advice, or being prosecuted from others and seek asylum away from their ignorance and discrimination against us, trying to harm our lives, being anybody, the government or the people, associated in some acting guild trying to bring harm to you, subcontractually working for the government or anybody else. Just like your medical records, to bring up dental records, x-rays, and any medications and what doctors you've seen in your lifetime, and pull it up and whatever information they have there as well. That way you can seek legal help. If you think the belief that they have on there and their diagnosis of you of anything in life is going to harm you anyway, physically or psychologically, or to be a productive person in this world, your human rights and your charter of rights and the laws of Canada. You also have, because the social insurance number of Human Resources Development Canada is Revenue Canada as well, because it's your social insurance number, you have access to every tax year you have and can download it as well. And that's right. They don't have to fill out taxes anymore. It's all on there. When you go to work every day, you go to the computer or a cell phone if you're on the job site, you swipe in their special little handheld device if they have one, or you access the web page, you type in your number, your PIN number, and you start work. When you end, you type it in, just like Pizza Hut when I worked at Pizza Hut. Go to the computer, type in my access number. When I leave, I type it out. For breaks or whatnot, over half an hour as well. That way, it's all registered in there. So you look at the long and short of it, that saves us that. It's mandatory to have a driver's license because you have to have BC identification. It's mandatory to have a registration of after the age of 14 where your address is in Canada. So it should be free. It's mandatory. Not $75 every 5 years. Free. It's mandatory to have K-12 to further your education in any institution, being military, policing, trade work, construction, cooking, security, and to further education of university, because you have to have good enough grades. I have the right to go back and check my school records on here as well, because it's there as well. You take your mandatory driver's course in the mandatory law course you take, because it's part of it. In school, you take the theory like Young Drivers of Canada, the practical after school when you take your or make your appointments. Mandatory law classes, so you know what aggravated assault is, what assault is, premeditated, intent to harm, and your human rights, so you can protect yourself equally and fairly before the law. And to understand that sports, because you're taking your mandatory physical education, that it's fun and enjoyment, and that it's healthy to do so. You might meet the person of your dreams, playing sports with them, socialize afterwards. You might meet them at church. Who wants to go to a noisy dance club where you can't speak and be drunk out of your mind? See somebody fit working out, it's a social club too in some senses. They're doing the same thing like going to church. You're listening to the priest talk through the Bible. You guys are working out. Same concept, just like walking around, buying groceries, or walking in public. Walk up to see somebody. Should be a DNA registry too, eh? Your birth certificate should be in there. A hard copy, not a flimsy piece of paper like it is too, for whatever province. And having to pay $75 for a birth certificate as well. Ridiculous. It's a piece of paper that's mandatory, and we shouldn't have to pay for it. It's part of the infrastructure of society. If you want it mandatory, then you have to have it. We need the following things for a PAL, a driver's license, a voting certificate, that you don't want to teach in high school, which is mandatory to have as well, to do, which should be in that law class, how to do. We're in trouble. We pay so much for infrastructure of society in our house taxes, for parks and recreation, school, park and recreation, free workouts, free swimming, free library. We don't pay a toll every time we jump on the roads to use it. It's part of the infrastructure of society. And we pay this much for hydro, and infrastructure of society pays for hydro lines, piping in the ground, and the roads, and the dams. It's in the infrastructure of our house taxes. We narrow this down to one card. We can access it on a computer nowadays, because we got computers. Anywhere we want to go, or go to Revenue Canada, or Service Canada, being the EI building, and we can access any information we'd like and download it on a piece of paper that our doctors in the medical card has on it, our driving record, criminal record checks, and our driver's licenses, our passport, our PAL, our voting, our martial arts registry, and education. So it's all on there. That's our proof. We can download resumes off of there, our information for that as well, and so forth. Employer can look it up on Revenue Canada, because it's part of Revenue Canada. And you don't have to have tax forms anymore, and save a lot of money that way too, because all information is already there. Our hours and everything else. We can find out information if there's false news and pretenses and slander against us to intend to harm us, and protect ourselves equally before and after the law if the information is there. And we can defend ourselves because now we know what others are saying about us that are slanderous and harmful to us, that discrimination from a police force or a doctor is going to harm us because they're believing other people and not being fair and justice under ethics and laws and human rights, protecting everybody equally and not being biased and being a gang against a bunch of people. Driver's license, social insurance number, and everything. All information on a database, just like your bank card, that you can check your records at any time. Categorize it in different stages, but that's the way it works. A birth certificate shouldn't cost $75 to replace ever in life. Driver's license every 5 years, so you can have a mandatory picture as well, and PAL as well. You don't have to have all those references to have a driver's license. You don't have to have it for a PAL as well. Our government's being a little, what's it called? The First Reich, gun control, World War II, a little trafficking of human beings causing a psychological and physical harm under the definitions of family violence to the people of Canada, causing us too much financial grief for all this stuff you call mandatory. If it's mandatory, we need to know laws and how things are, so it's not a cruel act and punishment under human rights in the Charter. Then start giving us mandatory law classes like social studies and English and math, so we can have a job in society, in institutions or trade work, in construction or foods or military or policing. And then you discriminate us by our education that we had from K to 12 because we didn't have high enough grades to obtain it, or have a 80% to pass on to the next level, like SAS apprenticeship says, that you have to have a 75% or 70% to move on to the next level, when voting is 51%, not 70% of the vote. You want to change the laws and structure of society by the definition of terrorism as well in the book. In terrorism that harms the people and the structure of society, then we have to have a vote too, just like the separation of Quebec. That's right. Right to self-defense. You take free physical education. You take the basics in sports. You learn not to assault people, that it's fun. You might meet the person of your dreams there at church or somewhere in society. It's just another socializing to stay fit. Better for the healthcare system too. You take the cardiovascular in school, then you have the right after school to sign up for swim classes, martial art classes, and so forth. Band, well, each instrument, just like martial arts is a different style, there should be a teacher for trombone, trumpet, bugle, guitar, ukulele, violin, drums, piano, in the school system. You have so many kids per class because they can't teach everybody the same. And then once you have so many years of practice, then you can join in mass band and learn how to march in a band or sit in an orchestra. Plain and simple. Things in society that should change. Just like acting. Drew Barrymore and those guys, they started when they were 3 years old, and by the time they were 10, they were famous people too, because they were childhood actors. Famous. Martial arts, Chinese take them and start them at a young age, and they're so good at 10 it isn't funny. Just like some of these MMA kids nowadays. They're taking it here and here. Or boxing, like some people I know. They started when they were 6 or 7 and become Olympians or whatnot as well. Our dreams. We start sports to become professionals and make money, just like in education. Acting, band, or whatnot. Because we see this in life. Oh, those musicians are selling all those records and making millions of dollars. The actors are doing the same thing. And these sports guys in the NFL and the NHL and in baseball, they're making pretty good money too. But the MMA guys aren't, and the boxers make millions of dollars per match. That's why everybody wants to do it. They're trap-like devices to get people to think they can get there as well. And you created all these industries and charge us huge amounts of money, causing financial burden to people and overpricing it when it's part of the infrastructure of society and in taxes. Is it out of hand? Is the question. If it's a course that's mandatory to obtain a driver's license, a firearms acquisition, to obtain a higher education, or to obtain a job in society, you have to have grade 10 to 12 to have, then you have to have it for free. Absolutely ridiculous. Equal rights, equal fair pay, and all that. After 6 months of training in the military or the police, and you get paid for your training at the same time, per week or per month, then it should be the same for everything else, just like an apprenticeship program. It's the way it works. Mandatory. Overpriced stuff, and it's a dead-end trap device because nothing's guaranteed forever, and who knows when you're going to be psychologically union ran off any job site or out of your own country because of discrimination or racism, because they don't want that many people in the field. They want to pay you the lowest wage possible.